Hello, everyone. This is Melinda with Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest tonight is Gerda Joon. Gerda has had a lot of experience in motorsports. She's done everything you can imagine for a race team and more. And so I'm excited for her to share about her life in motorsports. But Gerda, first, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you better. So, like your family, your pets, anything that you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Gerda. I was born and raised in the north of the Netherlands in Europe. And I came from this small town where there was absolutely no racing, and I didn't even hear about a race car until I was like in my teen. Um, Parents were born during World War II, so that was a really tough time. They didn't have anything, they were poor, and whatever I wanted, they always told me, if you want something, you got to work for it. I always like to brag that I was the black sheep of the family because I always did the weird stuff. And at a certain point, they got used to it. Um, we moved because the business that the factory my parents worked for moved to another city, and in that time, it was normal that the employees would move with them. So we moved to a bigger city, and once a year there was like on a local airport that was back in the day owned by Mr. Phillips, the guy from the light bulbs.
Okay.
Uh, he they had a drag race once a year over there. They converted the airport to a drag strip, and I got asked if I could sell tickets at the gate. So that's where I started. Then they found out I was pretty good with numbers and money, and so they asked me if I wanted to do the racing secretary for the Dutch Drag Racing Association. Send out all the invitations, made all the credentials, whatever needed to be done. To be honest, I never saw a car or a bike go down the track because I was always in the office.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you learn a lot of new people, and they always talked about, well, if you want to go to a real drag race, then you got to go to the racetrack in Germany, because once
Okay.
a year they have a big show over there. It's called the Night Show with the Nitro Olympics, and you have top fuel cars and they run in the dark, and it's the best thing ever. So one of the race teams a couple of years later invited me to go to Germany. We went there, and that's where I ran into my husband.
Okay. So
Love
you
at
met
first
your
sight.
husband at the racetrack.
Yeah, we ran, and it was love at first sight, and haven't been a day apart almost since that time.
That's
And now we
very
got,
cool.
yeah, now we live here in Indianapolis. Moved to the United States in 2013, and yeah, it's the racing capital of the world. So if you're in race cars, then this is the place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew where to move to in the States for racing for sure. So he was racing. He was a driver when you met him?
Yes, he was running at that time alcohol funny car. I think that one,
Okay.
the black and gold alcohol funny car, and his shop was about 100 miles from where I lived. So I would go there as much as I could, and at a certain point, I moved over there and moved in with him. And during the day, because he had an auto repair shop specialized in American cars, and during the day we would be working on cars, and at night we always worked on the race car. And that's
Okay.
how I got into racing and learned what I do now.
So how old were you when you met your husband?
I was, oh my lord, well, so that was actually a couple of weeks before 9/11. So that's
Oh,
2001.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's very cool. I love stories where you meet at the racetrack. And it
Yeah.
was love at first sight for you
Yeah.
and for him too.
Yes. Yeah. We both wore sunglasses, but there was this spark going from one to another, and that was it. I always told people, "Oh, love at first sight doesn't exist. That never happens." And well, it happened to me.
Yeah, and that's very cool. Yeah, I love it. So you helped him at the auto repair shop, and then you helped him with the race car.
Yep.
What did you learn how to do? Because you probably didn't know anything really about cars at that time. So, what were some of the first things that you learned how to do?
So I did not know anything about race cars. The only thing that I knew is that once a year they had that drag race, and once a year in a different state they had this big motorcycle race, the GP 500, I think they
Uh-huh.
call it, with Valentino Rossi and everybody.
Yeah.
So I really knew I liked racing, but I also liked the behind the scenes part of it.
Mhm.
What goes on in the pits? What goes on in the pit box with the GP 500? What does it take to get to a racetrack? Which I always thought was really fascinating, because a lot of people only see, well, the part on the racetrack where you go with
Yep.
an 11,000 horsepower race car for 4 seconds or 3 seconds
Yep.
nowadays. But so
Yeah.
that always fascinated me. And he had the bright idea with his alcohol funny car back in the day to go testing in England for a weekend. But we were still in the off season, so that whole race car was still in pieces. We had a voluntary crew that only would show up on Saturdays because they had a regular job during the week. And he was like, "Well, we're gonna build that car together." So he was underneath the engine, and I was pushing rods and pistons, and we were getting everything together. And do you need this bolt? No, it's that one. And it's the more you do it, the more you get used to. I've been whether it was the alcohol funny car or now the top fuel dragster, I've been pushing rods and pistons in that engine for 15 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm teaching new guys how to do it.
Okay. So you've gone from the trainee to the teacher.
Yeah, well, and I always told them that in the beginning, all I did was make coffee and make lunch, because I saw the guys were working their butts off, never had time to eat, and the tracks we went to, A, food is way too expensive,
Hmm.
and B, I was not impressed with the quality of the food, so I'm like, I'm gonna do it myself. So we got a grill, and I made food, and
Yeah.
we always did, because in Europe, you don't go to a hotel at night. You stay at the racetrack. You sleep in the trailer. The race
Yeah.
car stayed outside. So
Okay.
I always had dinner ready, and we always did breakfast together. Lunch was always in the staging lanes.
Yeah.
But dinner and breakfast was always something we did with the whole team, and that was always fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. And those are when you make your best memories, really.
Well, to be honest, the best part of the being at the racetrack is you wake up 7 o'clock in the morning, you got your coffee machine running, it is still so silent outside,
Uh-huh.
and you can hear the birds, and then within an hour and a half it's noise everywhere, and
Yeah.
and all hell breaks loose. Is like, but it's yeah, I'm a racing fan in general. I like
Yeah.
NASCAR, I like IndyCar, um, I love drag racing.
Hmm.
It's an adrenaline thing.
Oh, it is, and it literally gets in your blood. I mean,
Yeah.
you cannot explain to people who have never been to a race. You can't really explain it to them because especially like drag racing when you're sitting if you're sitting on aluminum bleachers or whatever and the car revs up, the bleachers even vibrate and you
Yep.
feel the vibration inside and
Yep.
when NASCAR cars zip past and if you're sitting down very low, which I never do, but if you do, your hat might fly off or you're getting dirt in your face or whatever because that's the real experience of
Well,
being a
and
part.
that's always really difficult to show on television,
Right.
because I think television doesn't do drag racing justice.
No.
It is incredible the amount of force that comes with two top fuel dragsters leaving the starting line.
Yeah.
I think they measured it once. It is 2.3 on the Richter scale.
Whew. Yeah, you have to experience it. I mean, watching pro football and being at a pro football game, it's different. You hear the a lot of the sights and sounds, but it's much more similar than watching a race on TV and being at the race. Because when you're at the race, the sights and smells and the sounds are so different than what you get from a broadcast.
Absolutely. And what I love about NHRA drag racing is every ticket is a pit pass.
I
So
know.
whenever you go through the gate, you can
Mhm.
get autographs, hero
Yep.
cards, you can talk to the drivers, you can see the crew working on the cars. And
Yeah.
that's what I absolutely love about NHRA drag racing.
Yeah, I do too. And that, motorsports in general is a fan experience. Um, even even NASCAR, if you have the right ability or credentials or you're willing to pay, you can get to the driver, you
Right.
know, which you can't do that if you wanted to go watch Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or whoever. There's no way you, as a football fan, can get to those people.
Right.
But race car drivers and if it's a lower series, they're even more accessible. And like you said, the drag strip is full of fans and they're interacting with the drivers and
Oh,
the crew.
yeah.
You might have a mechanic who's like, I want to see what the mechanic is doing on that, top fuel car. And you just can't explain those experiences to people. But once they have that experience, we know one thing for sure, they're going to become a fan.
Well, and I always tell people there's especially with new people going to the racetrack for the first time, I'm like, here's the deal. Give it one chance. You either like it or you don't. Because there's
Mhm.
no road in the middle. You cannot like it a little bit.
No.
Because it's all or nothing. Because there's so much going on. And again, I love interacting with the fans and talking to people and explaining what we're doing. We
Right.
always have the ropes up, but with new crew members, I always keep telling them, keep in mind the difference between, well, what's the rope this thick?
Yeah.
Being on one side of the rope or the other side of the rope, it's a
Hmm.
big difference.
Big difference for
It's a
sure.
big difference.
And we would be nowhere without the fans.
Absolutely.
So we have to make sure that we interact as racing fanatics, which is what you and I are, or people who work for a team. We have to remember that it's a big deal to a fan. If they're a fan of your husband and he takes time to autograph, or you take time to say, hey, thanks for coming to the race, it makes their day.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So we have to keep up those kinds of interactions with the fans and build those relationships for sure. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember one time we were racing at Santa Pot in England, and it was the Easter weekend. We literally had snow next to the guardrail because it was so cold. We were on a racetrack that was 34 degrees. I think actually that picture,
Uh-huh.
that one was taken there. Um, they did not cancel the race, but it was so cold at a certain point. The race director came over to us and he went, Lex, you're running the final, and you got about half an hour. We're going to run it at 4 o'clock. But for all safety, since it's so cold, we're only going to run an eighth mile instead of a quarter mile. Back in the day, we still ran a quarter mile. And we said, okay, well, let's warm this baby up, because we were happy if we could warm it up because we finally had some heat going on our
Yeah.
hands. I had a pot of water sitting on a stove with bottles of oil in it just to get the oil a little bit liquid so we could get it in the engine. There were 12 people still sitting in the grandstands.
Oh
There
yeah.
was hardly anybody, but we still put up a show because they sat there in the cold and they wanted to see us.
Yep.
We'll put on a show.
Right. Just
Without the fans, if there would be nobody in the grandstands, we would not be racing.
right. It's Atlanta over the weekend for the NASCAR race was in the 40s
I know.
on Sunday, and it was really windy, and so it was even colder than that. And yet when they showed the grandstands, I thought there was a really good crowd there,
Right.
and especially for the weather. So, if that's the only race you get to go to during the year and you've bought your tickets, you're going to bundle up, take a blanket and do
Yeah.
whatever, and you're going to
Well,
watch the race.
as long as I always say you can dress against the cold. If it's raining and you get soaking wet, there's nothing you can do about it.
No.
But the cold you can dress up against. You
Yeah.
can get a big winter coat and can you imagine those spotters high up there?
Oh, I
Oh
cannot.
my gosh, it must have been cold up there.
It had I listened to a podcast called Door Bumper Clear, and it's on Dirty Mo Media, which is Dale Earnhardt's media company. And Door Bumper Clear is 3 spotters, and yes, it was freezing cold up
I
there.
bet.
So
Yeah.
And then when it's hot as hell, they're up there too. So they get the both ends of the heat.
Right.
The heat and the cold. The heat and the
yeah,
cold.
but then at least I get a tan out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So for sure.
Yeah.
So
oh, you got my favorite NASCAR driver there.
Oh yeah, Kyle Busch.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Oh, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Yeah. I thought you were looking in the back. Kyle Busch has been one of my favorites, but I love Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing. I love him as a sportscaster. When he does it for NBC, I love when he does that. He just does so much for motorsports even now, and he's absolutely one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, I what I really and as sad as it sounds, but because of the Earnhardts, whether it's Dale Sr. or Dale Jr., I think they made a huge difference in the safety aspect of race cars.
Yes.
We all know what happened to Dale Sr., but after that happened, there were a lot of changes made. I think the Hans device got mandatory.
Yeah.
Closed helmets were mandatory. And now with the whole new concussion rules, I think Dale Jr. has been a part of that as well, where
he has.
If a driver has a concussion, they can come out and they are still eligible to win a championship.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's amazing.
It is amazing. And he wrote a really good book about that. If you haven't read it, I
got it.
Yeah, I highly advise that you read both his book and Kelly's book. His sister wrote an amazing book, especially as a woman involved in motorsports and business. She also has written a really good book. In fact, I've read it twice, and so I highly recommend both of those books.
Well, I got Junior's book. I still have not had the time to read it.
Well, you'll do that on maybe a drive to one of the races one day. So
I'll try.
All right.
But mostly I'm driving the tow vehicle, and I got a bunch of crew members sitting in the back.
Okay.
Lex always drives the truck and trailer himself to the racetrack. So we're always working and busy, and I got to make some time for that.
So let's talk about race day. What, before we came on here, you told me a little bit about how you got to your position right now as crew chief. So why don't you go back a few years and kind of start wherever you want to and tell us, you worked on the cars with your husband, but then you had some jobs working for other people to get to where you are now. So why don't you share that a little bit with us?
So mostly I always like to call it one of the guys. I was one of the mechanics, and I worked on the race car. I've been his backup girl for, 17 years or something. The thing with a voluntary crew, what we have is you have a lot of people coming in and going again. It's not what they thought it would be, because it's not your typical 9-to-5 job. And I always like to do stuff myself. So in case something happens where one of the team members gets sick or doesn't show up or whatever, we can always fill in that spot. If we like to brag about it, if push comes to shove and we do one run a day, I only need one person to start up to help me start that race car. Otherwise, Lex and I could do it with the two of us.
Okay.
We can service the car. We can do whatever needs to be done. At that time, I probably won't have a backup girl, but I can get them back on the radio. So we like to be as independent as possible, but that's also because we don't have a budget.
Yeah.
We still have regular job. We pay it out of our paycheck, and every dollar we spend is hard work for. Um, During the race weekends, what I do a lot is monitor the weather, see what it does for the weekend. When we get there on Thursdays and we set up the pits, one of the first things I do is put the weather station up on the trailer and get it running. I measure it every hour to see what my weather station says, and what nowadays, especially with the internet, you got a lot of websites where you can get forecasts and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I compare the forecast with what my weather station says. So eventually I have an average where I'm like, okay, well, density altitude on my weather station is 300 feet lower than what they predict on the weather station. And if I know on Thursday we're running Friday, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night, I already can see in the forecast what they think the weather will be. So I try already to get a tune up, working on that. I'm talking with Lex. What do you want to do on compression, blower overdrive, and keeping an eye on the guys, which is mostly what Lex does, because I'm in the trailer monitoring all the numbers. And at a certain point, you got to make a call and say, hey, here we go. Put the head gaskets on. This is what we're going to run. Those are the pulleys for the blower overdrive. We had one race earlier this year, which is, I think it was Bristol, where on Saturday night, we already put the head gaskets on the engine, and we torqued everything down to be as ready as possible for Sunday morning. Because I don't have a full-blown crew that has the experience of many, many, many years where they can do it within an hour.
Right.
So we have to buy time in that way, and we still have the ability in the staging lanes to either change ignition, or we can change blower pulleys in case the weather does turn around. But at a certain point, your head gasket call is kind of for us what we want to do, because we don't put it on kill. We always have a safe tune up in the race car for as safe as it can be, and then see what it does. I've got a bunch of numbers I keep an eye on. What happens to the clutch? How much weight are we going to put on it? How much ignition are we going to put in it? When are we going to put a retard in it? How much do we want to go back up? All those numbers, that's what I do.
So the notebook, as you know, you hear that a lot. Everybody has a notebook. Your notebook has to be full of such valuable information, because you go to the same tracks, you know, over and over the years.
Yep.
And you kind of know that, you know, in Michigan in August, it could be very humid and it could spring up a shower here and there. And so you kind of know, even several days before you go, this is what you're probably going to encounter, or what you've encountered in the past. And then the weather station, that's interesting, because I've never had anybody tell me that they monitor a weather station.
Oh, everybody does.
I did not know that.
All the race trailers have a weather station up on the trailer.
Okay. That's new to me. I've never had anybody that I've interviewed ever mention what they do and how they use the weather station.
Well, you base your tune-up on the weather. So are you in Denver, where you're at 3,000 feet high, or are you in Gainesville, where we were last year, where the adjusted altitude was minus 700 feet? So you were below sea level.
Right.
That is a big difference for your engine combination.
Sure.
So you have, and even I showed my guys the other day, even a thing as 3 degrees in temperature outside already makes a difference for us to say, hey, we're in the red or in the green, as we like to call it. Yeah. So it's really close to the tune up to see where we're at.
That's really interesting. I'm surprised I haven't heard of that before or even noticed it because
That's why
I
I'm here.
that's why you're here. So, but it's the details, right?
Right.
And so, I've been to a lot of haulers at the track I've gone to the most is US 131 Motorsports Park, and it's in Martin, Michigan. It's
Yep.
only about a half hour from me, and it's a really nice track. And I've been there quite a number of times, and I've been there to watch some ladies that I've interviewed, but that's not something they ever talked about. But I wonder if it's more just that, they're so used to having it and using it, they don't think about that the people that are listening maybe do not know that. And
Right.
so, we're always educating and teaching people about things on here, which is what is so fun for me actually to, always try to learn something new about what you do. You mentioned about the behind the scenes. That's something that I'm a big fan of, inviting people to come behind the scenes, see what's happening, even at your local short track. You know, Call your favorite driver and say, "Hey, can I come and be a volunteer in your pit? I want
Right.
to see what you do." And
Yep.
I think people would have much more appreciation for racing and drivers and crew members if they saw what all it takes to get that car on the track.
Absolutely. And um, we always say, and especially for us, all our preparations in the shop are key. We have to have everything ready in the shop because if something happens on the racetrack, we don't have all the tools maybe to fix it. We know
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people within racing, but everybody's busy. Everybody's working on the program. So we try to be as prepared as we can be before we go to a racetrack. That's why we keep telling our clutch guy, make sure uh, all your clutch packs are ready. All your numbers are correct. Let me know what you got. Let me know what you need. Let me see what I can do for you. But it's simple stuff as going to Costco and getting all the groceries.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of behind the scenes as well.
Right.
Uh, Getting everything ready, packing the whole trailer, make sure you got everything. And I've always had this nerve that when I leave, I'm always like, I forget something. I forgot
Oh
something. I
yeah.
forgot something. But eventually, we're pretty lucky, and I didn't forget anything. And I've got notes like everywhere because
I
I
was
like,
just going to say, I bet you have a list
yeah,
that if you had to, you could go over the list and it has everything on it that you need to
yeah,
take.
yeah. I got a bunch of checklists. I got checklists everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
But that
absolutely.
that 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 works for me. Other people are like, oh, we have somebody that's all of that, and if we
Yeah.
don't have it, well, we'll just go in town and get it. Well, we don't have that luxury, so we have to
Right.
be as prepared as we can be. And to
Yeah.
be honest, I love that.
Well,
As difficult as it sometimes is, I always like to quote Tony Stewart in that one. If you never slept in the truck and trailer because you could not afford a hotel, you never know what a race car driver is going to be.
right. Right. And
And that's
I
it.
I think it makes you more relaxed on race weekend if you know you've been prepared and you
Right.
have all of it with you, then you don't have to worry about going to the cooler or whatever and be like, "Oh, I forgot whatever."
Yeah.
And
No.
so being prepared ahead of time, I think makes you more comfortable and more relaxed on race day, and that's important.
Yes, because you already have so much stuff you have to go through.
Yeah.
We got a voluntary crew. 9 out of 10, we have 1 or 2 guys that are there for the first time. So you always have to keep an eye on them because all of a sudden they are flabbergasted because they see John Force or Tony Stewart, which I love is now in drag racing as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, and they just freeze up. They're like
Uh-huh.
flabbergasted. They're starstruck, and I'm like, "Hello."
Yeah, hello, you're here to help me. So where do you get your volunteers that help? Is it family, friends? You
So
know?
the NHRA really has a good program. If you go to their website, it's called NHRA Launch. And if you want to do or go into motorsports, a lot of the race teams have openings on that website. And whether it is hospitality or in marketing or as a mechanic, they got a whole bunch of options over there on that launch website, and we get a lot of people through there.
Okay.
Uh, 9 out of 10, they always think they get paid high dollar. That is in our team not the case, because 9 out of 10 they don't have any experience.
Right.
So instead of, I always like to joke, instead of you paying me for your education, you're going to be a volunteer and we're going to teach you what to do.
Right.
And especially what not to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of teams that cannot afford the paid help. And so that's a great program. And really, there's nothing like hands-on to learn. I learn best by you showing me,
Yes.
not by me reading. So
No.
I might read about it so that I'm familiar with the terms and the parts and everything. But for you to actually show me, here, this is how you do it.
Right.
That's how I learn the best. And a lot of people do. And I think, for them to have hands-on experience is invaluable for sure.
Right. Absolutely. And what I mostly do is I don't even show them how to do it. For instance, I don't know, putting a spark plug in a cylinder head. You
Mhm.
got to feel how the thread goes in there. You
Right.
can use big machines and tools, but first I want you to do it with your hands so you get a feel for it. I've only got high school. I got no education at all, but I've always worked with my hands. So I tell the guy, here's a spark plug, put it in there. He's like,
Right.
well, what socket do I use? No, don't use a socket. Here, turn it in there, because you can feel if it is right or wrong.
Uh-huh.
And then at a certain point, they're like, oh, yeah, now I feel it, because it's different.
Yeah.
But it's not rocket science.
No.
At a certain point, it becomes muscle memory.
And you know what? People have been doing it for hundreds of years, working on cars, and
Yep.
and so no, it's not rocket science. But to be really good at it, you have to be able to have that, what that feels like. And so
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your husband's car. What kind of car does he race? Where are some of the places that you especially like to go to race? Do you have a favorite track?
Everybody has a favorite track.
I figured.
So he runs a top fuel dragster, which is an 11,000 horsepower bomb.
Yeah.
It goes from 0 to 330 miles an hour in 3.7 seconds. 0 to 100 miles an hour in 0.8 of a second. He's actually 65, so he's not the youngest anymore. It's an adrenaline sport, so it's here and it's gone, and it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What was the rest of your question?
Your favorite track?
Oh yeah, Bristol.
Oh, Bristol. Okay.
Yeah, I love the fact that you got a racetrack in between the mountains, and then in the dark. That is still mind blowing. But a lot of the stuff we go through here is still very surreal for us. Because when we lived in Europe, we always watched what was going on in the United States. So back then they did not have live feeds. There was no NHRA TV. So on Monday morning, first thing you did is read all the web pages that had all the reports on it. And you would go on YouTube, see if you can find any videos of it. The best part about race day on Sunday for me personally is still the national anthem.
Oh.
That still gives me goosebumps, and sometimes I gotta punch myself, because we've seen it so often on television.
Mm-hmm.
And it is still surreal for us to be in that show now. Not that I want to be on television or anything, but just the pre-race ceremony, the national anthem, the parachute guy coming down out of the sky with the American flag on it. It still blows my mind, and we're actually here.
Yeah. And back in the day, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. So back, when you lived in Europe, what is it that eventually your husband and you decided we're going to move to the United States? What
Uh,
was the thing that made you decide to do that?
I think it's a couple of things. First of all, we both love the United States of America. We have this love for this country that we cannot explain. I always like to tell people, well, some people are born in the wrong body. We were just born in the wrong country.
Okay.
We like big American cars. We like big engines. We like big, and big is good here because you can have, as I call it, a big black SUV. I got a Cadillac Escalade right now, and I love that car.
Yeah.
Where we come from, you cannot drive one of those cars because it's just unaffordable.
Yeah.
We won in Europe basically at every racetrack there is to win. He won a European Championship in 2005. We went to the FIA award ceremony in Monaco, where at that time Michael Schumacher was still there because he was still in Formula One. Fernando Alonso, who's now being a great Formula One driver, he was the FIA champion that year. So they're both on the stage. Bernie Eccleston was there. But we always want more.
Uh-huh.
And race car drivers always want faster. They want to win more. They want, and this is where this is what drag racing is big. We had the opportunity in 2009 to race Pomona in Vegas. We shipped everything from Europe, and we were like, "This is it.
Yeah.
This is what we want. No question about it." Had to go through a whole process on getting a green card, which was not easy. Which was really easy to say, you know what? Forget about all the paperwork. Let's just do what we're doing now. And we got family still over there. We literally left everything behind, put our whole life in a 40-foot container, race car first.
Priorities, right?
Well, there's that. And we shipped it. So here we are. And that car that we're running now is from 1999. We always
Wow.
have every update on it. Would I love to have a new race car for him? Sure. Can I afford it right now? No, but one day we will, and one day we will run the better numbers that we are doing. What I was really proud of is this year, and it showed in Bristol already, we start running personal bests. Bristol, we did personal best. After Bristol, it was Indy. We ran better. He ran 390 with 318 miles an hour. We went to St. Louis where we ran 387. So the numbers are getting better and better.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're really proud of. And again, that car is from the previous century. It is.
Yeah.
Got the aerodynamics of a brick. And, but we're still doing it.
Yeah. That's such a cool story. Yeah, that's a great story. And it makes me feel sad and a little bit embarrassed actually to think that I was born and raised here, and then to hear someone who moved here by choice and how much you love the United States. Obviously, I do too. And honestly, when the national anthem plays and the planes fly over, I get a lump in my throat.
Yeah.
And it's just something that it's in your heart. It's something that you're proud of, and you can't even really maybe explain it. My husband and I, the last 2 winters prior to this one, we lived in our motorhome out in Arizona in the winter because our youngest 2 daughters lived there with their kids. And we lived in Surprise, Arizona, which is very close to Luke Air Force Base. And that's where they train pilots. And they would they would fly over the RV resort, and you couldn't help but look up, and it just made you feel proud to
Right.
see those planes fly over. And the
Yeah.
most I ever saw on one day was 8.
Wow.
And I honestly pulled off. I was on the highway, but it wasn't busy. And I pulled off enough that I could sit and watch them because it was just a, like, I don't know, the experience of that was breathtaking to see those 8 planes flying, in the formation and whatever. And I miss that. We didn't go there this winter, and I really miss those planes flying over.
Yeah,
And
and it's
so,
the same when you're in Vegas because you got Nellis
yes,
Airspace
yes.
base over there. You get an air show daily over there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And so, for someone like you who moved here by choice, left everything pretty much like you said, and came here to follow your dreams of racing, drag racing. Um, we that live here and have been born and raised here need to be a little more thankful and grateful for where we live and what we're able to do and all that. So I appreciate that reminder from you today.
Well, and anybody can ask me, and I don't want to get in politics or anything like that, but I think, but that's only because I've been on the other side. I
Right.
don't think people realize how good this country actually is. But
Hmm.
even though they think it might be way better in the Netherlands because the healthcare system is better than it is over here, first of all, it's not getting way better than it is here. The stuff over there is getting worse too.
Yeah.
Uh, you pay $8 a gallon for gas. Your sales
Uh-huh.
tax is 21%. If you drive a Cadillac Escalade, you pay about $600 a month on road tax. It is
Wow.
it, it's it's not as bad over here as people think it is.
Right.
And what I always do, because I get a lot of questions about women in motorsports, and I learned from Lance Larson a lot. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things that he taught me when I was taught the crew chief duty, what to do with firing up the race car, setting all the aisle, and I was a nervous wreck. But he helped me, and I knew with him behind me that I could do it. But it had nothing to do with my gender.
No.
And he always told me, Gerda, remember this. I do not care about your plumbing. You
I
can
love
do
that.
the job, or you cannot. And I
Yeah.
always tell my guys in the race team as well, listen, there's nothing I'll ask you to do that I would not do myself.
Right.
Because if you don't want to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But I got a reason why I ask you to do certain things. And there is absolutely no order, because I think my team is a whole team. There's no, oh, I'm higher than you are. Like one
No
of my
pecking
guys,
order.
my guy, one of my guys left by the end of last year because of family, and I need somebody else to fire up the race car. And I was talking to one of our crew members, and another guy goes, "So you got a promotion?" I'm like, "Listen, it's not a promotion.
No.
I have a spot that is open, and I think that he is the best person to fill in that spot. It has nothing to do that he is better than you are, so he gets the job." I'm like, that's not how we work over here. Everybody's equal in my race team,
Yeah.
and I don't.
That's great.
I was not raised looking at color,
Yeah.
the color of your skin. I still have this one picture of 9/11 in my phone where people are walking the streets and they're totally full, covered with dust.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot see their color.
No.
You cannot see their race. You cannot see their religion. You cannot see anything. But we
No.
all helped each other out.
Right.
And I think that is more important than anything right now. And
Yeah.
that's how I run my race team.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. So right now, as I understand it, and for the last couple of years, you are the crew chief for your
Yes.
husband. So what is the and we know that you're the team manager, and so we've already had the discussion that that means that no matter what needs done, you're there to do it
Yeah.
if they need you to. But let's just talk about being the crew chief. What are your responsibilities on race day, let's say, as the crew chief?
So, and I think every crew chief will tell you this. My number one responsibility is to keep my driver safe.
Okay.
Whether it is my husband, whether it is Santa Claus in that race car, whether it is Tony Stewart in that race car or Dale Earnhardt, I got to keep my driver safe.
Okay.
So I'm on my crew. I always like to tell people during the race weekends, my evil twin sister shows up because I'm not I'm
Oh,
not the most fun person because there's so much pressure on my shoulders because not only is it my driver, he's also my husband.
right.
And I want to make sure that everything is ready and done perfectly as good by as they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That they did what we taught them to do. We'll triple check everything if the spark plug wires are in right, and what kind of tune-up are we going to put in the race car.
Yeah.
That is one of the big things that I'm working on. I'm crunching the numbers in the trailer all day to see what we want to put in there. Lex is working with the guy putting stuff together, and on the when we're in the staging lanes, I put on or help him with his fire suit, his gloves, his helmets, his Hans device. I get him in the car. I do his seat belts. We both do his parachutes. Whatever needs to be done, that gets done. And when we're actually at the starting line, I fire up the race car. I set the idle. After the burnout, we back him up. I'm behind the car. I know exactly where I want him to be. And at a certain point, I tell him, "Okay, honey, it's up to you."
Yeah. That's just, and when you watch it on TV and you see, whoever, women or men backing the driver up,
Yep.
this way, that way, or whatever, um, you know, you you just know that's a very important job to get them lined up straight and where they should be and ready to go. But then it all comes down to that driver, and he's got to be ready, and he has to have confidence in not only his crew chief and his crew, but he has to know that they've done everything they can to make him successful, and he has to trust. Trust is a
Yeah,
big thing.
that is a huge thing. I'm glad you said that because he he needs to trust his crew blindfoldly.
Right.
And we always tell our guys, listen, even if we're in the staging lanes and you torque the cylinder heads, but you're not 100% sure if you got all the bolts, you let me know.
Right.
Because we had at one time where one of the bolts on the exhaust came loose and it got under the rear tire. It punctured the tire. Luckily, it didn't blow the tire. But that could have been a whole different story.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that is always my biggest fear that something will happen and then
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, I think that's true of anybody involved, especially if it's your husband, your team, your driver. The last thing you want is for somebody to get hurt, because
Absolutely.
it's just not worth it. I
No.
mean, it's just not. But knowing that the people around you care just as much as you do, Gerda, and as Lex, your husband, does, the people that, if they care as much about everything as you do, then they're going to take responsibility and do the very best that they can. And then that comes down to the trust. I
Right.
trust, I know they don't have spotters in drag racing, but that's the same thing. The conversation on Door Bumper Clear was about trust, and how there's some drivers that if their spotter says go high, they don't think twice. They do
No.
it.
Right.
They don't even look to see, because in that split second things could change, and that comes down to trust. And so that's a big part of motorsports, because your life is in their hands.
Well, and that was one of the reasons why, at a certain point, we made a decision to let me do what I do now. Because when Lance Larson started with our race team, he wanted to keep the overall side. And him and Lex were talking like, hey, who's going to fire up your race car? And Lex went, well, let's see. I've got Mikey, I've got somebody else, I got him, and I got him. And okay, so Lance Larson asked him, who do you trust? Well, and the other thing is who will be with you every race, because with a voluntary crew, not everybody always can take the days off.
Right.
And Lex went, well, maybe we could ask him. And Lance asked him flat out, what about Gerda? Lex went, no, she's never going to do it. And while they were having that conversation, I remember it was here in Indy, I walked by and I saw this smirk on their face. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And Lex literally tells Lance Larson, okay, you tell her. And Lance Larson, who is, I don't know if you ever seen the man, he is a big guy and he just stands there and he's like, we want you to fire up the race car. And I looked at him and I'm like, that's a bad idea. And so, well, here's my problem. He's like, I want to have the overall side. We need somebody we can trust. We need somebody that's going to be there every race. We need somebody that he trusts. He's like, and you're it.
You're it. You fill the bill.
I'm like, well,
yeah.
But now I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing because we're making ourselves independent again from anybody else.
So when you have to fire up the race car, why did your husband at first not want you to do it?
Because I didn't want to do it.
Okay. And why is that?
Because it's a bomb. It can blow up in my face.
Yeah. Because of the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told them, and I still have that. I'm getting used to it now. But I always told them, first of all, I try to look like a $3 million team, even though I'm a $300 team. So I don't want to look like an idiot. Yeah. With me being his wife, with me being his a female, people are really easy to judge.
Oh, yes.
So if something goes wrong, it's only because,
it's a woman.
All of those.
Yeah.
And I did not want to do that to Lex.
Right.
Because I think he deserves better. To be honest, I think he never got the credit that he deserves. When he became a European champion in the Netherlands in 2005, we had to go to City Hall to get a medal. And the ambassador of sport had a medal in his hand. And he went, well, Mr. Joon, you probably earned this. But I think what you're doing is polluting the environment.
Oh.
And that's how he got the medal.
Well, that kind of stinks, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was this close to tell the ambassador to put a medal where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, no kidding. But you wanted your husband to have that medal.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always there, and I know he trusts me. I'm pretty lucky. I got some good friends that I can ask any questions. We're really good friends with Hall of Famer Lee Beard.
Okay.
We're really good friends with Rob Flynn. I always like to call him my help desk. So if I have any questions, I can text him. Doesn't matter whether we're at the racetrack or at home. I always get an answer from him.
Yeah. And that's good to know you have somebody that's got your back if you need it.
Oh, absolutely. Rob Flynn was the first one in St. Louis when we ran the 387 that showed up in our launch to congratulate us. And I know 387 is not what they're running because they're running 360s. But that was a personal best for us. So we were over the moon.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I can't even imagine.
I like to tell people, I think if you would turn it around and go to other drivers and say, hey, try what they are doing.
Yeah.
Try moving to the other side of the world just for racing with no budget. You work your butt off to get to the racetrack and your budget is, I don't know, $5,000. There's no way you can put a top fuel car on the starting line for that kind of money.
No.
but
Not
we put a
even.
lot of labor of love in it.
Sure.
I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid, but we
No.
still love what we're doing. My guys are not getting paid, but
Right.
that's okay because we enjoy what we're doing. This
Yeah.
is an opportunity because there are opportunities here in the United States that we're living the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
Yeah.
can take that away from me.
No, absolutely not. So a couple more questions and I'll let you go because I know it's evening time when we're recording this. And
No, that's
so
okay. I got
okay.
time.
All
It's
right.
not bedtime yet.
Okay, good. So are there any other women crew chiefs that start the car that you race against, or are you it?
Um, I think Lex checked it last year with the NHRA, but I am the only female crew chief out there in NHRA professional drag
Okay.
racing.
Yeah, I kind of
But
thought that, but I thought maybe I had missed somebody, but
but on the other hand, I don't think it is as special in NHRA that females are really good at what they're doing. Look at Erica Anders, who's
oh
a
right.
five-time pro stock. We got Leah, who's running a top fuel drag.
Sure.
Women are normal in
It's normal,
NHRA drag
yeah,
racing. We had Cha-Cha years ago.
right. It's normal to see a lot of women at the track in
Right,
different roles
right.
because we are used to seeing those women. But, even in NASCAR, there's not a woman crew chief. That's a different position and you don't see that very often. And so I did my research, but I just wanted to be sure I hadn't missed somebody because I thought that you were the only one.
Yeah, I
Um,
know years ago you had Tim and Kim Richard, who were on the Bernstein Budweiser car.
uh-huh.
I like that fact, especially since we are a husband and wife race team as well.
Right.
Uh, but I think right now I'm the only one out there.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
I don't care about my plumbing.
No, I get that. Um, I just appreciate that you were willing to do something out of your comfort zone,
Oh, absolutely.
um, because you love racing and that's what you want to do. Um, there's a lot of people that have big sponsors that take for granted all those team members and things that they have. And so I think your story is a good reminder that every team doesn't come to the track with a wallet full of money,
Mm-mm.
but that doesn't mean that the passion they have is any less. It doesn't mean their success necessarily is any less. It just means maybe they work a little harder themselves, behind the scenes, because you don't have a whole team full of people at the shop every night working on the car.
No, we absolutely don't. Last year, I think most of the guys they try to be there on Tuesday night, sometimes on Thursday night. Depends on if we're racing over the weekend, but otherwise it's only on Saturday and everything else that needs to be done. Lex and I
Hmm.
will go to the shop every night if we have to,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
whatever needs to be done, we get it done because we live by this brand, never quit,
Yeah.
and we never quit. And
Right.
it is sometimes so annoying bec-
Yeah.
because we never quit. It would have been way easier to say at a certain point, you know what, put a for sale sign on it and that's it.
Yeah.
We're never going to make it. But like, again, like what we did in St. Louis, ran at 387, we were over the moon and
Oh, I'm sure.
it was still on 7 cylinders.
Wow.
So we were like, there's so much more potential. So we want
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
We're not
So,
done yet. Can you
no.
imagine what we could do if we have a sponsor?
Yes, I was just going to go there. So, you don't have any marketing partners, sponsors.
Well, we do have like Gates. They support us with the belts. CC
Okay.
Carrillo. They support us with pistons.
Okay.
We've got, which I think is really cool, but that's not a sponsorship. That's more of a relationship. We have a veteran organization called Safe 22
Uh-huh.
because there are at least 22 veterans per day that commit suicide here in the
Mm,
United States.
yeah.
And coming from the Netherlands, we're not really used to war have to say it. The United States somehow always is involved in some kind of war.
Oh yeah.
And
Because we always try to help everybody.
and that's it. I always tell people, listen, it is the best country, it is the strongest country in the world, and if somebody is in trouble, the first phone call they're always going to make is to the president of the United States,
Right.
saying, hey, can you help me out?
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
we like to get awareness for veterans. During our race weekends, we have veterans in our pit, and
Nice.
to give them hopefully a great time and take their minds off stuff
Yeah.
for just one weekend and see if we can help them that way.
See, I love that, and I did not know that about you guys. There's another, and yours is called what now?
Save 22.
Save, SAVE.
Yes, ma'am.
Save 22. Oh, I see. 22 a day. So there's also another organization out there called Stop Soldier Suicide, which I met some guys at a racetrack a few years back that were involved with that. Suicide is an I don't even know what the word. Suicide is close to me. My son committed suicide in 2018. He was the one that got us all into motorsports.
Okay.
And so I know the pain that comes with for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I think with veterans, they've done so much for their country. They've left their families in many cases. And then they come back, and we can't even begin to imagine what they've seen and been through.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes they're forgotten. So I want to say I appreciate very much what you do in that regard. My son was not a veteran, but suicide is a very hard thing for a family to go through. And so I appreciate that you do that.
Well, we always said, and I'm sorry to hear about your son, and uh, if we can only save one,
Right.
because that's the problem. Uh, the person commits suicide, but the family that is left behind,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine what they are going through.
Right.
So if a weekend at the NHRA drag racing helps one of those veterans and say,
Yes.
hey, this is worth living for,
Right.
that they change their minds on things that they're dealing with,
Yeah.
then I'm already happy.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So I'm going to keep track of that organization a little closer now that I know about it. So I appreciate you sharing about that. One other question that I did want to ask you about was about being a mentor for other women in drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
So there have to be other women that are mechanics and do a lot of different things in NHRA and other drag racing series. Do you ever have the opportunity to mentor other women or younger women? Do you ever get a question like, how did you get started in doing this? And can you speak to that for a little bit here?
Well, lately, what I see more is I see dads with his little girl come to our pit, and they are standing at the ropes asking for my autograph. And then dad says she wants to be in motorsports when she grows up too. And I always tell people, don't let your gender, don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do what you want to do.
Right.
Because if you want to be in motorsports, you should go for it.
Yes.
A lot of people told me you can never do what you're doing now, and I'm doing it anyway. But
Yeah.
I have this issue. I like to prove people wrong.
Yes.
So if you really want to do something, and I don't care if you want to work with horses, if you want to be in a race team, if you want to be in motorsports, do the investigation, but do not be afraid to get dirty hands.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
Yes.
gotta do the time. And as what I see, and I see it in my regular job as well, as a female, I have to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
I during the day I work at O'Reilly Auto Parts and I
Okay.
sell a lot of car parts, and I'm in a man's world.
Yes, you are.
And as a female, I gotta work twice as hard, and I gotta work twice as hard for the customers to get my trust, and I gotta work
Yeah.
twice as hard to get stuff done. But that's okay. That is something that was my decision. And if
Yeah.
somebody tells me I cannot do it, I'll prove everybody wrong.
So when you're, I just have, this is kind of an odd question, but if a man walks into O'Reilly's and there's you at the counter and a man at the counter, do they tend to go ask the man
Oh,
more?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if somebody buys wiper blades and you offer to the customer, would you like me to put those on? And he looks around the store and says, "Is there a mechanic around here?"
And you say, "Let me show you."
Then I'll tell him, "No, it's all me. It's what you get."
Yeah. I
And then
kind
he
of
says,
figured
"Well,
that.
I'll do it myself." And 9 out of 10, I just think, well, it's out of politeness where he does not want to have a female put on his wiper blades. But
Yes. Yes, for sure.
I think I replaced in my lifetime more wiper blades or batteries than anybody.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's
At a
okay.
certain point, I always keep telling myself, "Hey, it's your loss."
Yeah, you have to let it go, right? Just let it
Yep,
go.
yep.
Yeah.
Don't. It's not personal.
No, it's not at
It's.
all.
I see it the same as a gentleman opens a door for a female. That is
Yes.
politeness as well. Well, in this case, okay. Well, you don't want me to do it. That's fine too.
Right. Right. Okay, my last question is about social media. Do you use social media to promote yourself and your race team? And if so, how can we follow you on social media?
So my Facebook page is Gerda June. It's mostly race team what you see on there because I like to keep my private life a little private.
Okay.
But it's mostly racing stuff that is going on. We have a Twitter account with Lex June Racing. We have another Facebook NHRA Top Fuel Lex June NHRA Top Fuel Racing. I always tell people if you Google Lex June, you will find everything. Because I
Okay.
think it's more about him than it is about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's the superstar.
He's the superstar. And so is NHRA the schedule that you would follow? Or do you have a other schedule that you post on there, or how would we know where you're going to be racing?
So we are now preparing for the 4 Wide in Charlotte.
Okay.
Because I like going to Charlotte because it's NASCAR country.
Yeah.
We went there a couple of years ago, and one of the first things we did on Friday night is we went to Indianapolis
Uh-huh.
and we visited the Dale Earnhardt Sr. statue that is over there.
Yeah, that's very cool, isn't it?
That is so impressive.
Yeah, it is.
We were in Bristol one time where we met Michael Waltrip. So
Yeah.
I just love racing. I like NASCAR as well, even though it's circle racing. But there's so much more going on.
Yeah.
We're preparing now for the 4 Wide in Charlotte. The rest we want to do is Bristol, because I love Bristol. Chicago, which is back on the calendar for this year, which was not last year. Indy, because it's the U.S. Nationals, it's the Big O, it's one of those where you got to be there. And then St. Louis again. That's what we are planning to do for now. But if for some reason I blow up everything that is in Charlotte, I might have a problem.
That's not going to happen. I know that's not going to happen.
Right. So. But if for some reason we win in Charlotte, it might be we put a couple of extra races in there.
There you go. There you go. Well, Gerda, I have really enjoyed this conversation with you. I will tell you that your husband reached out to me to tell me about you.
Oh, he did?
And so he didn't
Why
want
am
me
I
to,
not surprised?
He did not want me to tell you that prior to, talking and that. But he's very proud of you, and he's very proud of what you do in motorsports. And so he may not tell you that, but I'm going to tell you that. So I appreciate
he has a
that.
Problem now, because next time I got to fire up that race car, I just might walk away.
No, you're not going to, because it means too much to you. And I appreciate when, especially when a man, husband or not, reaches out to me and says, "Hey, you need to talk to so and so. They're really doing big things in motorsports and they need some, they need to be interviewed. They need people to know what they're doing." And that's what I love to do. I love to tell the stories of women in motorsports. And so um I really appreciate the time tonight that you took to talk with
Yeah, we were
me.
saying 30 minutes, right?
Oh yeah, it's an hour and 10. It's fine. People will listen. It's a good conversation, and they're going to want to hear your story. And so I'm glad that we took our time and got everything covered that we wanted to cover. And I actually have the Chicago race on my calendar. I'm only a couple hours from there, if that, maybe an hour and a half or so from that track.
Okay.
And so if that stays in black on my calendar, I'll be in touch because I would love to come and hang out with you that day. That would be a lot of fun. So
Oh, absolutely. I would love to have you as our guest.
yeah. So we'll keep that on the calendar and in the back of our minds, and I'll for sure let you know that that I'm coming. But I just want to wish you all the luck this summer with your racing, and keep doing what you're doing. Get out of your comfort zone, which you're pretty good at, and you never know what the next position is they're going to come up for you to do. But I'm really proud of you, Gerda, for what you've done, coming to the United States and doing all of that because of your love for racing is a pretty big deal. And so I want you to pass that on to your husband as well. And I'll be following along. So don't be surprised that you see me
So you're
liking and
making me blush.
oh no, this is very sincere,
I
for sure.
appreciate that.
So thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And take care and please stay in touch.
We will. Thank you for having me. I really had a great time talking to you and talk racing. And I can see you got it in your blood as well. So I think we can talk for hours.
Oh, I think we could too. So we definitely need to meet up face to face so we have time to do that.
Yeah, we'll do that in Chicago. Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.